My sister framed me for theft so she could marry into a rich family, so I crashed the wedding with proof and ruined everything she worked for. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I've always been the scapegoat in my family. If something broke in the house, it was my fault. If my sister Emily got in trouble at school, somehow it was because I was a bad influence. I grew up with the heavy weight of blame pressing down on me while Emily wore her golden child crown like it was custom-made. My parents adored her. She could lie, manipulate, even scream in their faces, and they'd still pat her on the back and say, "She's just passionate." Meanwhile, I couldn't so much as roll my eyes without being told I was disrespectful. I remember once, when I was 12, Emily smashed a vase while running through the living room. She cried, pointed at me, and said, "He did it." And without hesitation, my mom grounded me for a week. Emily got ice cream that night for calming down after the scare. It wasn't just the punishment, it was the way they looked at me. Like I was some permanent stain on the family photo, while Emily sparkled in the center. She knew exactly how to play them, and she grew sharper with age. By the time we were teenagers, she could twist any situation into her favor. If she failed a test, she said I distracted her. If she got caught sneaking out, she claimed she was covering for me, and every time my parents nodded along like her word was gospel. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if they actually believed her lies or if they just wanted someone easy to blame. Resentment built in my chest like a stone I couldn't swallow. And Emily knew it. Sometimes she'd smirk at me across the dinner table. The kind of smirk that said, "I can get away with anything, and you'll always pay the price." I thought things couldn't get worse than being invisible in my own home. But that was before Emily raised the stakes. Emily's rise to royalty in my parents' eyes hit a new level when she started dating Ryan. He wasn't just some guy. He was from a family with money, real money. His father owned a string of businesses in the city. His mother came from old money. And together, they looked like the kind of people who appeared in glossy magazines. My parents practically bowed every time Ryan walked into our house. "Do you see what your sister is doing with her life?" My dad would say, shooting me that disappointed look I'd memorized since childhood. "Don't embarrass her. She has a bright future." My mom piled it on even worse. "Try to stay out of sight during dinners, okay? Emily needs Ryan's family to see her as perfect. Don't ruin this for her. Perfect." That was their word for her. For me, it was always lazy or unreliable. But the truth was, I was busting my ass just to keep a roof over my head. I was working late shifts, paying my own bills, clawing for every bit of independence. Meanwhile, Emily still lived off handouts, floating on family favors like life owed her something. That's when I started noticing things going missing, small amounts of money from my wallet, my old watch, even a few electronics around the house. I brought it up once, and Emily gasped, clutching her pearls like I'd accused her of murder. "Don't blame me for your mess," she said, her eyes narrowing just enough for me to know. My parents, of course, rushed to her defense. "Why would she need to take from you? She's marrying into a wealthy family." I let it go, too exhausted from work and too beaten down to fight. But every little missing piece gnawed at me. Something about Emily's story didn't sit right, and as the wedding plans sped forward, the pressure on me only grew heavier. It all came crashing down one evening. I walked into the living room to find my mom frantic, digging through drawers while Emily sat on the couch, sobbing like she was auditioning for an award. My dad's face was pale as he muttered, "It's gone. The necklace is gone." The necklace wasn't just any piece of jewelry. It was our grandmother's heirloom, passed down through generations. My parents had been saving it as Emily's wedding gift, their way of crowning her the princess she always thought she was. Then Emily's watery eyes locked on me. "He did it," she whispered, voice breaking. I saw him near Mom's dresser earlier. He's always struggling with money. He probably pawned it for cash. I swear, my blood froze. What? Are you serious right now? My voice cracked with disbelief. I would never touch that necklace. Why would I even? But my mom cut me off, her face hard. Don't lie. You've always had sticky fingers. Enough. My dad snapped. Where is it? Just admit it and we can move on. I stood there, stunned, my chest burning with fury. I didn't take it. I don't even live here anymore. Why would I steal from you? But it didn't matter. Emily buried her face in her hands, crying louder, and my parents' eyes filled with disgust as they turned on me. Every word I said bounced off their wall of blind loyalty. To them, Emily's tears were proof enough. I tried one last time, my voice shaking. You really think I'd steal from my own sister from Grandma's memory? My mom's reply was a whisper, but it cut deeper than any scream. We don't know who you are anymore. And in that moment, I wasn't just their scapegoat, was branded a thief. The fight didn't last long. Within an hour, I was standing on the porch with a duffel bag, my dad's voice echoing behind me. You're not welcome here until you return what you stole. My mom wouldn't even look at me. Just kept clutching Emily like she was a wounded child instead of the viper she really was. Word spread faster than I ever thought possible. By the next morning, extended relatives were calling. Some asking in hushed tones if it was true, others outright accusing me of being a disappointment. How could you do that to your sister? One aunt hissed over the phone. On the eve of her wedding. Shameful. Every call felt like another nail sealing the coffin of my reputation. I ended up crashing on my friend Mark's couch, staring at the cracked ceiling as the weight of it all sank in. My whole life I'd been the scapegoat, but this was different. This wasn't just blame for a broken vase or a failed grade. This was my character, my integrity, stripped away and burned. I lay there night after night, wondering if this was a tiff. Maybe I was meant to live the rest of my life cut off, smeared by Emily's lies. I considered walking away for good, cutting ties, pretending I never had a family. It would have been easier than carrying this constant ache of betrayal. But then, something nagged at me. I replayed Emily's tearful accusations over and over in my head. And one detail snagged like a thorn. She claimed she saw me near Mom's dresser that morning. The thing is, I hadn't even been in the house that day until dinner. I was at work. That crack in her story lit a spark. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. Maybe I wasn't powerless after all. Lying on Mark's couch one night, I kept replaying everything in my head like a broken film reel. The necklace, Emily's sobbing, my parents' disgust. And then, suddenly, a memory surfaced so sharp it made me sit up. 2 days before the necklace vanished, I'd walked past Mom's room and caught a glimpse of Emily. She was crouched over the dresser, her hand in the jewelry box. When she saw me, she slammed it shut so fast the lid rattled, then laughed it off. Just checking to make sure everything's safe, she said. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now it felt like the missing puzzle piece. The next day, I ran into Jake, a mutual friend from high school. He lowered his voice and said, "Hey, weird question, wasn't that your sister at Miller's pawn shop last week? She had a bag of stuff, looked like jewelry." My stomach dropped. The pawn shop. The same one down the street from our neighborhood. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Emily hadn't just framed me, she'd planned this. Stolen the necklace, pinned it on me, and covered her tracks with tears. A hot wave of rage surged through me. But beneath it was something else, determination. For the first time since being cast out, I felt the faint spark of control. Maybe I could prove she did it. Maybe I wasn't powerless. That night, I lay awake, a plan forming in my mind. I couldn't storm and screaming-eyed, only look desperate. I had to be careful, smart. Quietly, I'd gather evidence, piece by piece. Until I had enough to expose her, Emily thought she'd buried me with her lies. She had no idea I was about to start digging. The next morning, I walked into Miller's pawn shop with my heart pounding like I was about to rob the place instead of uncover the truth. The owner, an older guy with sharp eyes, barely looked up from his ledger when I stepped in. I forced a casual tone, trying not to sound desperate. "Hey, I think my sister might have sold something here recently, family heirloom, kind of important. Any chance you keep records?" He sighed, flipping through a thick binder, then paused. "Emily Carter." "Yeah, she was in here last week. Brought in a necklace gold, vintage design." I remember because she seemed nervous as hell. He slid the paper closer. There it was in black ink. Her signature, the date, the item description. I snapped a photo of the receipt with my phone, my hands shaking. Proof. Actual proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't the thief my family branded me as. I thanked him and turned to leave, but froze when two women near the counter started whispering. "You know her fiancé's family doesn't tolerate scandal. Their old money, very strict. If anything shady comes out, they'll cut her off in a heartbeat." The words hit me like a punch. Of course. Emily hadn't just framed me out of spite. She was protecting her image, building a spotless facade before marrying into wealth. One whiff of drama, and she'd lose it all. I was her insurance policy, the sacrificial lamb. I stepped outside, clutching my phone like it was a lifeline. The photos glared back at me cold, undeniable evidence. For the first time in weeks, the scales had tipped in my favor, but I knew timing was everything. If I revealed this too soon, Emily could twist it again. No. I needed the perfect moment, the kind that would shatter her mask in front of everyone, and there was only one stage big enough for that. Her wedding. Just as I was piecing everything together, Emily threw a curveball. One night, Mark tossed his phone at me with a smirk. "Check this out, your sister's wedding announcement just got updated." They moved it up to next weekend. My chest tightened. Next weekend. I wasn't ready. I still hadn't gathered everything I needed. The pawn slip alone might not be enough. Panic gnawed at me. Why the sudden rush? The answer came quickly. Emily knew. Maybe she'd heard whispers about me, asking questions. Maybe someone at the pawn shop tipped her off. Either way, she was accelerating the timeline, hoping to lock herself into Ryan's rich family before her lies caught up. A day later, my parents called. My mom's voice was clipped, cold, but calculated. "We're inviting you to the wedding. It's the right thing to do. But listen carefully, don't you dare embarrass your sister. This is her day, and we won't have you ruining it." I almost laughed at the irony. Ruin it? Emily had already ruined me. But as I hung up, I felt a storm brewing inside. Should I go and expose her? Risk being labeled the villain one last time? Or should I protect myself quietly, knowing I had proof, and finally cut ties after her perfect facade collapsed on its own? Mark leaned back on the couch, studying me. "You've got the ammo, man. The question is, are you gonna fire it?" I stared at the pawn receipt glowing on my phone screen, my heart a knot of fear and fury. The thought of standing up in front of that powerful family, in front of all the relatives who branded me a thief, made my stomach churn. But another thought burned hotter. If I stayed silent, Emily would win. Again, and I couldn't let that happen. The rehearsal dinner was like walking into a theater where everyone had a Rolex at mine. Emily glided through the room in a designer dress, her laughter ringing out like she was already queen of the world. Ryan's parents beamed at her, clearly impressed by her polished charm. My parents hovered close, fawning over every word she said. as if she were the only child they'd ever had. I sat at the far end of the table, invisible. No one asked me how I was doing. No one even acknowledged the wreckage they'd left me in. Emily caught my eye once and leaned close just enough to whisper, "Don't screw this up for me." The venom in her voice was hidden. Beneath a sugar-sweet smile, she flashed for her future mother-in-law seconds later. I clenched my fist under the table, my thumb brushing against the folded pawn receipt tucked safely in my pocket. Proof, my lifeline, my only weapon against her empire of lies. The paper felt heavier than gold. The food tasted like sand in my mouth as I watched her weave her performance. She spoke about charity work she'd never done, values she'd never lived by, dreams she'd stolen from others. Everyone nodded along, enchanted. And there I was, the black sheep painted into a corner of shame that wasn't mine to wear. My dad even raised a toast. To Emily, the pride of our family. His eyes didn't flicker toward me once. I should have felt crushed. And maybe part of me was. But another part stronger, this time, was building into something sharper. Rage mixed with clarity, like a storm forming on the horizon. Emily wasn't untouchable. She thought she could hide behind that perfect smile forever. But I was done staying silent. The church was dressed in white roses and gold ribbons. The kind of spectacle you'd expect from a family with money to burn. Emily stood at the altar in a gown that sparkled under the stained glass light, her smile perfectly rehearsed. Cameras clicked. Guests whispered about how beautiful she looked, how lucky Ryan was. She was the star of the show, just like always. I sat alone in the back pew, the black sheep pushed as far from the center as possible. My palms were sweaty, my heart hammering so loud I thought someone would hear it. The pawn receipt burned against my chest pocket, as if reminding me with every beat. Now or never. The officiant cleared his throat, opening the ceremony with practiced words. My eyes locked on Emily. She was radiant, yes, but not because of love. She radiated victory, like she'd already won. Like she'd buried me and now stood free of consequence. I couldn't hear the vows, couldn't even process the words around me. All I felt was the suffocating weight of years of being framed, blamed, and erased. My parents' faces glowed with pride, and I realized if I stayed silent, this story would never change. The officiant raised his hands to continue, and that's when I stood. The scrape of the pew against the floor echoed like a gunshot. Heads turned, one by one, until every eye was on me. A hush fell over the room, the kind that vibrates in your bones. Emily's smile twitched. For a second, just a second, I saw the mask slip. Her eyes widened, panic flickering before she pulled it back into her perfect bridle. Grin, but the silence was already broken. And I was about to break everything else. The silence stretched so long it felt like the whole church was holding its breath. My parents glared at me, their eyes screaming, "Sit down." But my voice came out steady, louder than I expected. I can't let this wedding go on without the truth. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emily's face hardened, though her smile never fully dropped. "Ignore him," she said sweetly to Ryan's parents. "He's jealous. He's always been jealous." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded paper, holding it up for everyone to see. "This," I said, "is a pawn shop receipt, dated the week before the necklace disappeared. Signed by Emily Carter." A collective murmur swept across the room. I walked down the aisle, each step heavy, deliberate, before placing the photocopied receipt into Ryan's stunned hands. That heirloom necklace. The one Emily claimed I stole. She pawned it herself. And she framed me to keep her image spotless for this marriage. Emily's voice cracked into shrill denial. "That's a lie. He's forging things. Now don't listen." But the panic in her eyes told a different story. Ryan looked at the paper, then at her. "Emily, is this true?" His voice was low, shaking with anger. She lunged toward me, her mask shattering. "You always ruin everything," she screamed, her perfect composure gone. "You couldn't just disappear, could you?" The room erupted. Guests whispered, gasped. Some even pulled out phones to record. Ryan's parents exchanged horrified looks. Their perfect future daughter-in-law unraveling in front of everyone. For the first time, I saw Emily stripped bare, not the golden child, not the bride-to-be, but the liar who had destroyed me to protect herself, and there was no hiding it anymore. The room spun into chaos the second. Ryan dropped the receipt onto the floor like it was poison. His jaw clenched, and without another word, he tore the ring off his finger and slammed it onto the altar. "We're done," he spat, his voice slicing through the stunned silence. "I won't marry a liar." Emily reached for him, her veil trembling as she cried out, "Ryan, wait. Please, I can explain." But he yanked his arm away and stormed down the aisle, his parents right behind him. Their faces were tight with fury, their whispers sharp enough to slice glass. My parents rushed toward me, faces flushed crimson. My mother hissed under her breath, "Stop this madness before you ruin her life completely." My father's hand gripped my shoulder like he could physically force me silent. But the damage was already done. Guests leaned toward one another, whispering in disgust. Phones hovered in the air, cameras recording every sob, every scream. Emily's perfect wedding day was unraveling live for the world to see. Emily collapsed onto the steps, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "You ruined me," she sobbed, her voice raw and desperate. For the first time in my life, she wasn't in control. She wasn't the golden child. She was just a liar, exposed and broken in front of everyone she tried to impress. I stood there, breath heavy, my heart pounding with something I hadn't felt in years: vindication. The weight of being branded a thief, a disappointment, a failure, it lifted in that moment. Everyone could see the truth now. Emily had built her world on lies. And with one piece of paper, it all came crashing down. And for the first time, it wasn't me left in the rubble. In the days that followed, the story spread like wildfire. Clips from the wedding made their way online, Minley screaming, Ryan storming out, me standing there with the receipt in hand. The golden child image she'd clung to her whole life shattered overnight. Her wealthy in-laws to-be cut ties immediately, and whispers about her betrayal followed her everywhere. For once, I wasn't the family disgrace. She was. My parents tried to patch things up, at least in their way. They called me with voices trembling, saying things like, "Families make mistakes, and can't you just let this go? She's your sister." But I was done. I'd spent my entire life sacrificing my peace for their approval, and where had it gotten me? Exiled, branded, broken. No more, so I told them plainly, "I'm finished being your scapegoat. I won't let you rewrite this story to make me the villain again." And then I hung up. That silence, the final break, felt like freedom. I started over. I focused on work, saved money, and built friendships with people who actually saw me for who I was, not the role I'd been forced to play. For the first time in years, I woke up without the crushing weight of shame pressing down on my chest. But the truth is, the scars are still there. I'll never forget the sting of being cast out by the people who were supposed to protect me. I'll never forget the way Emily smirked when she thought she'd won. And yet, in a strange way, I'm grateful. That betrayal taught me strength. It taught me that family isn't always blood. It's who stands with you when the world tries to tear you apart. Emily lost everything she built on lies. I walked away with my dignity, and that's worth more than any wedding, any necklace, or any so-called golden child crown.